It's breakfast where we're talking technology. Because last night we had the first of the magnificent 7 tech stocks reporting earnings for this season. Joining us on the line from Seattle, the hometown of Microsoft, is the investor Keith Fitz-Gerald. Keith, good morning. Thanks very much indeed. Good evening to you for joining us.
Well, good evening and good morning to you all. Thanks for having me back. It's always a pleasure.
So, principal of the Fitz-Gerald Group, I know you follow Microsoft very, very closely as part of your portfolio. Glass half full or half empty in Microsoft's earnings?
Oh my goodness, it's hard to even know where to start. This company is just getting going. This was a great conference call, and all the trading afterwards, after hours, was nothing more than the market makers and the go fast crowd taking some money off the table. I think we're off to the races.
Okay, I thought you'd say that because you're very bullish on Microsoft, but the headlines I'm reading are glass half empty, to be honest. What has the Wall Street Journal gone with? It says Microsoft stock drops after disappointing cloud growth.
Well, I'm chuckling because I don't know, number one, the people who work for the Wall Street Journal don't work for Microsoft, so they're not in tune with everything the company's doing. But number two, that's their job, is to create sensational headlines. If you listen to the CEO, he's talking about monetization. He's talking about bringing money into the system. He's talking about everything that's going into 24, 25. So I'd rather go with the CEO than a journalist any day of the week. No offense to the Wall Street Journal.
As a journalist, no offense taken. More broadly, you've been looking at tech stocks. Microsoft, the first of the Mag 7 to report last night, so we got their numbers. But you were having a look at one or two others. We heard from Samsung this morning in South Korea. But AMD, the chip maker, had a good day. What did we learn from AMD?
Well, we did. We learned that EPS, for example, is up. Let me give some numbers here. I mean, data center sales up 115%, tremendously upbeat. Revenue plus 9%, embedded gross profits plus 17%, EPS plus 700%. I mean, these companies, when you start to triangulate all this, Richard, what this points out is that data is very real, and investors who are not paying attention are going to miss a boat that is leaving the dock right in front of them.
Nvidia doesn't report for a while yet, end of August, so it'll be a while until we hear from them. But the stock has come off its highs in recent weeks, hasn't it? Back in June, it was $135 a share. Today, you can buy one for just over $100 a share. So that's quite the sell-off. Is this a buying opportunity for Nvidia, the darling of AI?
Well, like anything, it depends on the individual investor involved, right? If you're short term, then probably you wanted to sell at the peak because the momentum shifted. On the other hand, I take a much longer perspective. I'm playing to 3, 5, 10 years from now. I'm well aware that AI is going to contribute trillions of dollars to the global economy. So I'm not very concerned about this kind of stuff.
Okay, fine. Well, let's look at some non-technology stocks as well. I know, for example, Pfizer is a company that you've been following very, very closely. Good old-fashioned pharmaceutical company. The COVID is over and all the hoopla about vaccines is over. So we focus on core Pfizer now. What have we learned from Pfizer?
Well, we've learned from Pfizer that their oncology portfolio is a lot stronger than we thought. We've learned that their sales continue to track, and we've learned that they've raised guidance. So, this is a company that has been beaten to smithereens, and arguably rightfully so. But as I've been saying for a long time, great dividend, solid care for the shareholders, great oncology portfolio. When it gets back on track, it's going to move well. So to me, this is one of these ones that I've hated every minute I've owned it, but I'm glad I do because, again, I think this company is going to be some good footing.
Let's talk about the Fed. We get an interest rate decision tonight. Most people think the Fed will stick. Well, I'm going to ask you what you would do, not what you think will happen. What would you do if you were Jay Powell tonight?
Oh my goodness, that's an interesting question, Richard. If I were Jay Powell, then I would be looking very seriously at a rate increase decrease. What happens is he has deliberately set out to slow the economy, and he's done an awful lot of damage. The risk that we know historically is that the Fed has probably hung on too far too long. They missed the crisis in formation. Now the pendulum has swung the other direction. But I don't think we're going to get that. I think Powell is going to jawbone the fact that they're open to new ideas, but I think he's going to do everything humanly possible to avoid playing politics or favoritism prior to the election and doing anything at all.
Finally, Keith, before we let you go, we've got to talk about not about stocks, but about motorbikes, a passion of yours. And that is because you are off across the United States very shortly. You're speaking at a conference in Wisconsin, which is about 2,000 miles away. But you're not taking a flight. You and your good lady wife are going to take your motorbikes. What do you... Go figure.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's one of our great passions. And here's why. It's not just about the bike. It's not just about being with my bride of nearly 30 years. It's about meeting people and discovering that life is normal and being invited into people's homes for an apple pie or sharing a conference or sharing a meal in a restaurant somewhere with interesting people you meet along the way. You know, I've been fortunate to motorcycle all over the world, and every single time I do, I meet really interesting, engaging people, and it reminds me of humanity. I'm an optimist at heart, and I cannot wait to get back on the road, Richard.
Well, our regards to Mrs. Fitz-Gerald. Enjoy your trip, and we'll catch up with you when you get back, because Wisconsin is a big swing state in the United States, so you might pick up some tips on the election. But for now, Keith...
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Really appreciate you staying up late to speak to us in Seattle. The thoughts there of Keith Fitz-Gerald, principal of the Fitz-Gerald Group.
The latest headlines and the biggest stories from here at home.